What the hell happened to wrestling?
Outlaws.
I don't go no street, no smacking with a beat goes whacking and a sound I'm checking into a hotel. I'll stroll no more outlaws in town. They ran their clan.
Welcome, Adam. Hello, welcome to episode 71 of the Middle-Aged
Hello.
Outlaws podcast. How on earth are you? Happy 2024.
I feel about 71.
Oh.
Yeah, but no, all good. Yeah, it's 2024. That's going to be a struggle to remember, but yeah, all
New
good.
year, new you?
Nah. New year, same.
Same old me.
Yeah.
Well, listen,
Yeah.
new year, new us. Is it not?
It's a new fun journey.
It is indeed. Ready to make an impact, if you will.
Wow.
Yeah, we're in January and we're all set for a new journey, which is going to be interesting based on the first little foray into TNA, total non-stop action. Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
enjoy your first foray? Actually, I should ask you, what have you watched of TNA? Because I have watched zero.
So I had watched little bits and pieces. I don't know that I ever watched any of this era. I remember seeing some bits and pieces when Christian was there, which obviously we're not far away from, but
Yes. Yeah.
I don't remember watching any show before he was there, and I don't remember. I think I once saw a show that had a Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe main event as well.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, but not a huge amount. So this was definitely new to me.
Okay. Before we get started and talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is TNA Bound for Glory 2005, and just for clarity, we're going to do similar to what we did with the WCW Journey and the Halloween Havocs, in that we're going to follow the Bound for Glories pay-per-views through the years, which should be interesting. And Bound for Glory was billed as TNA's WrestleMania. Supposedly, I think I said this last time, I would have went with Slammiversary as their tent pole. That just sounds awesome.
It's a good name. It is a good name. Yeah.
But no, they went with Bound for Glory. Unfortunately, we should have done Victory Roads so that we got the Jeff Hardy drunk match against Sting, but unfortunately not. Before we get started, there's a couple of things I want to go through. So during our Halloween Havoc journey, we were watching the horror movie from the year that we were covering. We were just going to continue that tradition because it's been quite fun. Unfortunately, I have been a lazy middle-aged outlaw, and I have not watched this week's movie. So before I hand over to you to talk about The Descent from 2005, which you've watched, I thought, because I've not done this, I would at least come with my hat in hand and give you something else very quickly instead. I've got my top five animals in wrestling. Can I give that to you now?
Please, yeah.
Okay. Counting down from 5, I've got the rattlesnake, which bit Triple H in the face in October 99 when he was feuding with Stone Cold. Do you remember he then had that hideous stuff on his face and he pulled it off?
Oh,
Those must be like really early SmackDown days.
Yeah. Oh.
So that's number 5.
Mm-hmm.
At number 4, coming at number 4, I've got Larry Brooks. You know Larry? Do you know Larry?
Larry?
No, CM Punk's dog Larry, the dog.
Oh, okay.
The only participant in the brawlout to survive without an NDA, supposedly. At number 3, I've got Frankie Ware.
Oh yeah,
famously of Coco Beware's shoulder.
Yep.
Everybody likes Frankie. At number 2, someone that we've come not in close contact with, but that we have watched. It's the Komodo dragon wearing a leather waistcoat, which Ricky the Dragon Steamboat brought with him to the ring at the Great American Bash 1989.
So weird.
And number one had to be Damien.
Yeah.
Probably the only thing that's ever bit Randy Savage and survived.
Yeah. What inspired you to come up with the list?
I have no idea. Coffee.
Is this just the kind of thing you think about when
Apparently,
when you've
yeah.
got a spare few minutes? Okay,
Apparently
fair
so.
enough.
I would have loved to have included the bear that Khabib Nurmagomedov wrestled as a child, but unfortunately it's strictly professional wrestling.
Okay.
Anywho, there we go. Would you have had anybody you'd want to throw on that
I've been
list?
trying to think, but there's not much. Like, I'm not going to put Bad News Brown sewer rats in there. That doesn't seem. Nah, I remember the British Bulldogs had a bulldog that they came down the ring with for a while.
Matilda. Did consider Matilda.
Yeah, I can't really think of other options. That's me pretty much out.
To be fair, I did sort of put you on the spot there. So,
yeah.
Okay, you are going to talk about 2005's Descent, a class horror movie which I have seen before, but the floor is yours.
Okay, so I'll just read out at first the sort of IMDb headline spiel about the film. A caving expedition goes horribly wrong as the explorers become trapped and ultimately pursued by a strange breed of predators. But I don't know that really scratches the surface of this film. So basically, we've got a group of girls who enjoy their outdoor adventure activities. Becomes very, very clear at the start that one of them is having relations with another one's husband. The
relations.
the woman in that family goes through a horrific situation where there's a car accident and her husband and young child pass away.
That's our main character?
Yes. Yeah. So we kind of fast forward 12 months and the group of girls are getting back together for what seems like the first time, and they're going on a new adventure together, which is going to be going down into a cave. Now, this is where, for me, the scares are real, because the whole thing about crawling through narrow spaces and plunging down into darkness and various things that go on early in this film, like a woman falls through a hole that she can't see until she's fallen through it and breaks her leg and the bones sticking out of the leg and all that. These are the moments that I found most horrific in the film. So turns out they get stuck. One of them gets a bit trapped, manages to get out, but their way out caves in behind them. So they're trapped in this cave. It then transpires that they're not in the cave that everyone thought they were going to. They're in a different one. One of the girls thought it would be fun to try and conquer one that wasn't so touristy.
Without telling them?
Yes.
Without sharing that information? Wow.
Yeah. So they don't have a map that can help them, and also nobody knows they're down there. Everyone thinks they're down this other cave. Of course. So that was all what have I described her as? The harlot, the one that was having the affair. She is clearly, they play this up in the film, she's racked with guilt about the fact she was having this relationship with this man and he's now died, and she's trying to, I think, clean her own mind about everything that's going on and get back in the good graces of the film. Then some pretty strange things start happening. They stumble upon all these animal carcasses, and they're like, "Uh-oh, that's not great." And then we see our first ghoul. I'll refer to it as this creepy thing crawling through the cave and trying to attack them. And that's where the sort of the film changes, really. It becomes about this attempt to survive and get out while they're being hunted by these ghoulish things that are living down in the caves. And we sort of, as we draw to a conclusion, but it's probably quite predictable that we end up with just the sort of lead character who'd lost her daughter and husband, and the other woman who was sleeping with the
Jezebel.
woman's husband. Yeah, it's a great word, that. And you're going through a bit with the woman about, because she now knows that not only I think knows that someone was going on with her husband, but also knows that this girl left one of their friends for dead down in the cave. And is she going to go back and save her? Now, it does have one of those endings that kind of leaves you a little bit, I'm not quite sure which the real ending was.
Yeah. Isn't there multiple endings for this? Is it? I feel like it's an American ending and a UK ending, possibly.
Okay, so the ending I got, the girl basically she stabs her former pal and escapes. The sort of heroic woman stabs the Jezebel and escapes. Gets out, gets to her car, drives for a bit, pulls over, and then she turns and sees like an image of the friend that she has just left for dead in the passenger seat, and then she flashes back to immediately being in the cave. She never actually made it out. Yep. by the look of that, and she's still haunted by the images of her daughter and all that kind of thing. And it's, by then it's like being in the cave is a metaphor. She's trapped, she can't escape from the hell she's gone through. Whereas I did think that there had been an ending where she really did escape, because I think the second film, because there is a sequel, begins with her. Nobody's believing her that this actually happened and all that, and people, I think, go back to the site. So yeah, interesting ending, because when it happened, I was a bit shocked, because I thought that's not how this ended. But yeah, good film. But for me, the real scares aren't the ghouls, because I don't buy that as much as just the horrible claustrophobic feeling of being stuck in a cave and the darkness and the no escape and all that, which were the parts I enjoyed. Is enjoyed the right word? Good film.
It's a great film. It's one of those things where it would be scary enough without the ghoul as you're describing it. And I think if you went into this film without knowing anything about it, you would probably assume that the scary aspects are that part of it, are getting caught underground and all that sort of stuff. And then you get the Gollum type character that's... Is there multiple ghouls, or is it just the one?
Yeah, there's multiple. So I think you see one in the first instance, and then there's a point where I think they're like shining a light up towards the top, just to see if they can see anything in terms of an escape route, and you just see them all along the top of the cave.
I think as you get older, but certainly for me, claustrophobia has become worse and worse as I've gotten older. I don't know what that is. I can remember being in, like one of these big wooden tree hut, huge things that kids can go and play in, and going underneath along a pipe and like stopping halfway and crapping myself and being like, nah, this isn't for me anymore.
Yeah, I suppose that's the middle-aged part.
Yeah. Oh well, I apologise for not getting to the descent. I'll get to our next one.
Yeah. It was good. It was a good start. I enjoyed it.
Okay, let's talk TNA. Before we do, would you like me to give you a little bit of sort of teeing up the background as to how we got to where we got to today?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably going to be incorrect, and it's probably going to be very brief, but I'll try.
Okay.
So TNA sort of was born out of WCW being bought by WWF, WWE, and ECW. And we see that from this pay-per-view that we're very ECW heavy. Jarrett's obviously WCW, and so TNA first sort of turned up around about 2002. Jerry and Jeff Jarrett went together, put their own money in to try and start this new company. To start off with, they were running weekly pay-per-views. Did you know that?
Yeah, I'd heard that or read that somewhere, and it just sounds like such a weird concept. But
they had no TV So really, their only way of doing it was running these weekly pay-per-views. They had Vince Russo attached with creative. I think they had Ed Ferrara as well. I think they must have run into sort of financial bother pretty early on. 2002 is at this point in time that the Carter family, they control a company called Panda Energy. They specialise in the construction of power plants. Anyway, they somehow managed to get them to put money into TNA, and then they end up buying TNA. So that was only after 4 months of running these weekly pay-per-views. They eventually end up starting something called Explosion, a television show called Explosion, and begin growing. Through 2004, they start their Impact TV show. And then later into 2005, I think they got some footing with Fox Sports, and then eventually onto Spike TV with their television shows. So they are sort of establishing themselves, and in 2004 they decided to go into monthly pay-per-views, which is quite. I mean, the weekly pay-per-view thing just sounds insane, but going. Now that we've got the benefit of hindsight, and we see the AEW start-up model of 4 pay-per-views a year, ballsy to have went straight into the WWE blueprint of 12 pay-per-views a year. But I suppose, and WCW obviously, and I suppose that is what was done at that point in time, and they obviously felt confident enough to do it. So by the time we get round to Bound for Glory 2005, we've had roughly about a year's worth of pay-per-views. Within that time, we've had Randy Savage turn up as a one pay-per-view, I think he did, in 2004. We've had Nash, Hall. They developed a good working relationship with Ring of Honor, a good working relationship with New Japan. So they're doing things. Again, in hindsight and from the outside looking in, they're doing stuff the way you would probably want to do it. And I think getting the impression from the stuff that we've seen on this pay-per-view, their fans very much see them as a professional wrestling company versus the sports entertainment at WWE. Which is interesting as well, because some of the stuff that we see in this pay-per-view alone makes you kind of question that a little bit. So yeah, that kind of takes us to where we are today. In terms of titles, they've got a working relationship with the NWA, so their main champion is the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. They've got an X division. How would you describe the X division?
It's difficult, isn't it? I suppose it's rather than being body size or body type, it's more like style. A sort of high risk style, and very athletic, very, even the bigger guys, agile. Yes, it's a hard one, I think, to explain. It kind of has to be seen to be understood, I think.
Aye, I'd agree with that. I believe they've got the NWA tag team titles. I think that's it. No women's division at this point. No hardcore division. Certainly, as far as titles concerned, you've got Raven there, and they do a lot of the Raven's Rules matches on their pay-per-views. Commentary-wise, we've got Mike Tenay and Don West on commentary. We're in the Impact Zone, which I think we must be in the Impact Zone for a good long period of time before they start going out and about. Something like around about 900 people attending this, and I think that's probably capacity for the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. So, how did TNA Bound for Glory 2005? How did it treat you, Adam? What do you think overall?
I quite enjoyed some of it. No, I enjoyed some of it. I thought some of it was fine. I thought some of it wasn't great. It was a mixed bag, but caught me enough to make me think, I'm interested in what's next. I didn't watch it and think this was bad. I watched it and thought, they could do some things differently, but I like what they're doing with several elements of what's going on. They've got some really talented performers, and they're guys that are, household names now, which is interesting, but who were getting probably their first break of any reasonable size at the time. There's some good matches on here. There's one what I thought was very good match, and there's enough, as I say, sort of interesting aspects going on for me, I think.
And what do you make of the 6-sided ring?
I like it. I think it's different. I think we've talked a few times about, when WCW talked about being bigger than or better than, worse than, same as, or different, I think this was going for different, and it comes across as different here. I think some of the movements don't always look as natural at times, but there's probably guys that are totally used to 4-side rings here who are trying to adapt. But I like the sort of slightly different options it gives at times. And I think it gives just the look and feel of it something a bit different. And
yeah.
I think they have to be an alternative. That's what they need to try and be. And those are the bits for me that work in this, where it gets a bit of a feel of WWE light is where it doesn't work quite as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really like the 6-sided ring, and that's something that the table for 3 things that they do on the WWE Network. AJ Styles is on that, I think, with maybe Angle and Samoa Joe or something like that. And he said that's why he liked it, because it made us different. And I think you're right. Like, they have to go for that. There's no way they're competing, especially sort of just out the gate. Although they've been going since 2002, but they're not competing, so make it different. And I think if I'd been watching wrestling in 2005 and had watched this, I think I would get behind it. I think I'd probably be quite interested in it. So I'm quite excited to watch some of these pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Shall we dive in?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, match 1 is Samoa Joe versus Jushin Thunder Liger. We mentioned the partnership with New Japan. I think we see one of the Inokis in the crowd as Liger's coming out. How did you find this opening contest?
I like what I immediately felt like they're going for with Joe. I feel like Samoa Joe is a guy that they are getting ready at some point to go all in on. Jushin Liger's a legend elsewhere. He's it's I think a big match to put him in without having him in one of the main matches. If you like, I was so blown away by how young facially Samoa Joe looked. As soon as it started, I was like, Jesus!
It's like it's not possible for him to look that young.
Yeah, it's so weird. Yeah, you think of him as one of these guys that's always looked like, what he looks like now.
Grizzled badass.
Yeah, but they make him look like a badass here. I think they're doing their best to build the match. They're talking about it as Liger being a legend, Joe being their guy, so it's a dream match for that. And I like the way that the announcers are building that and getting behind that. Every now and then there's just these vicious power moves by Joe, and you're like, oh. And I think this is before it used to happen, but you can totally see where the Joe's going to kill you chance started up from the crowd, because he's just a badass.
Yeah, he's scary. He's so big, and then he runs the ropes so fast. And these ropes are tight, and you just see him sort of flying off the ropes. I thought it's a great opener, a really good way to get the pay-per-view started. It didn't outstay its welcome. It was here. They went for it really fast and with pace, and then it was out again. And I liked that. It didn't have a lot of time these days, every match needs to be a dream match or like a 5-star
Yeah.
match.
Yeah.
And this, I think this went 8 minutes or something like that. They did everything that needed to do, and that was it. And it gets Joe over massively because, like you say, Liger's this sort of legendary character.
And it was decisive. I always wonder, see, when you've got guys coming in from other organisations, is there a little bit of a, we need to protect our guy, or we need to protect our guy? But it was a decisive win against a big name. And yeah, I've always liked Samoa Joe. I liked him when he came into WWE as well. He's got something about him. He's got an aura about him.
Absolutely.
And I thought, I definitely saw him at times in TNA previous years, but this would have been the earliest I'd ever seen him in a match. And you can see right from here, he's got it.
100%. We like the little details. A lot of time when we're talking about these matches, a nice wee detail that I liked. Liger tries to get Joe up for a suplex, and he can't quite get it, so he stomps on his foot.
Yep.
Joe lifts his foot and he fisherman suplexes him when he lifts the foot. Stuff like that is just yes, love that.
Yep. That was great. Yeah.
I hate seeing that muscle buster thing that Joe does. That looks like it just hurts, and there doesn't seem to be a way that it cannot hurt.
It does, and I was surprised because he does it, and then he goes for the choke, because I thought the muscle buster would just be the end, but then he goes for the choke. I think did they mention an undefeated run here as well? Yeah,
they're talking about a streak, and it's funny because like something like, especially mentioning that word, a streak, you're coming out of WCW and all that, you just think Goldberg, but I think with Joe, like, he's a kind of character where you don't immediately roll your eyes and go, oh, look, they're going Goldberg with him or whatever. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like legitimate, which is great. So a good start and a good win for Samoa Joe. We get a little bit of footage of their TNA fan fest, and this is where you get the fans sort of saying, oh, it's not like a soap opera and all this sort of stuff. It's quite funny. Did I hear this right? They called their fan fest Total Non-Stop Interaction.
I think so, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is tremendous. Brilliant. Then we go backstage. We get Simon Diamond giving his Diamonds in the Rough stable a bit of, Diamonds in the Rough stable a bit of a pep talk before their 6-man tag match that they've got coming up, which is our next match. And this, we started out strong, and then we got this, and I was like, oh, right.
Yeah.
I mean, these matches are to be expected, but at the same time, it's just about, oh no. Second match was Simon Diamond, Elix Skipper, and David Young taking on Apollo, Shark Boy, and Sonny Siaki. And as soon as they said Shark Boy, I thought, I don't think I want to watch this, because the only thing I knew about Shark Boy was that he did like a Steve Austin gimmick.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But I didn't think he was doing that here.
Yeah.
But nah, this wasn't great, was it?
It did bring you back down, like as you say, from a good start and like a pretty intense start. It felt like a little bit of, almost like it was designed to be there and bring you down a little bit. I assume for things like this, they're just trying to get a bunch of their guys on the card and have a match. I think there's names that became familiar to me. Like I know some of the names that are in there, but none of them, I didn't feel like the match gave any of them a real platform to stand out or anything like that. It was just a bit of a mishmash.
It definitely was. It felt a bit WCW for me in that it was just turned into a bit mayhem at some points.
Yeah.
There's about 4 or 5 people in the ring. The ref completely lost control.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. I think they had something with that Apollo guy, but he was clearly quite green, I think.
Yeah.
He was a big lad though.
Yeah. It felt like he was the one they were trying to put over. But there were times when there were people in the ring and I was kind of looking and I was like, I don't actually even know for sure side this guy's on. So yeah, Apollo. I think they gave him. Did he do a big like RKO diamond cutter type move on someone at a point, and they were trying to sell it as a big deal, but I'm not sure it ever quite worked out for the guy.
It was during this match that the commentators started talking about what the main event was going to be, and that was going to be Jeff Jarrett versus Kevin Nash, but they were talking about Kevin Nash having pulled out due to some sort of medical emergency. And I think this was legit. I think this was around about a time where he was worried he was having a heart attack. I think he was having some sort of panic attack or something like that. But he's talked in the past about his dad having had heart issues and stuff like that, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So I think this was legit. The Diamonds in the Rough get the win after David Young hits quite an impressive spine buster. But yeah, not a great second match. This is where we get our first sight of Mike Tenay. And, oh God, I've forgotten his name. What's his name? Don West?
Don West.
Yeah. For what I know about Don West, it's that he wasn't like the most technically gifted wrestler, like person with the greatest wrestling knowledge, but he's just really enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And it seems to be quite a well-loved character.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a couple of podcasts that pointed at him last year when he died. I think it was last year he died.
Really? Right, God.
But he'd worked in various companies, and I sort of heard Bruce Pritchard was talking about him. Bruce Pritchard did a while in TNA, and he said, he's not. This is never going to be a guy that sits there and talks about arm drags and stuff like that. But like, he must have had multiple roles within the company. It was like he could sell anything to anyone. Brilliant. So you put him with a microphone in his hand, and he is going to get you enthusiastic about whatever is on the show. And yeah, he seemed to be universally very, very much loved.
Nice.
I can see, because we've had Mike Tenay a few times in the WCW shows, and he's quite good in some ways, and then he starts annoying you a wee bit in other ways. And he's giving you maybe unnecessary information at times. So I think it's maybe quite a good balance to have somebody who's just there and loving it regardless of what's going on.
Yeah, I didn't have any complaints about them, to be honest. They probably did a good job in that they didn't really stand out. So I quite enjoyed them overall. What do we get? Yes, so we get Tenay and Don West recapping some of the dark matches, which would have been nice to see. They talk about Roderick Strong and Austin Aries, I think, Sonjay Dutt, maybe. They also do a bit of a recap of some stuff that's happened between Raven and Rhino and a massively irate Larry Zbyszko, who appears to be the authority figure in TNA. He's playing it well. I think every time we see him in this pay-per-view, he's just really angry.
It's a funny one because he's Larry Zbyszko, and I think, he's a big name. He's held in high esteem. He does seem massively pissed off with everyone who speaks to him and asks him a question about anything. But you've got he's referred to as kind of the on-screen authority figure, but it's made clear that there are other people pulling the strings. It's like he is there to be the one that's there. And also, is this where we first see Shane Douglas as a backstage interviewer, which I was not expecting to see at all. It kind of took me aback a bit.
So this is when we see Shane Douglas with Jeff Jarrett, and Jarrett starts cutting a promo saying that Nash is dodging him and all this sort of stuff. And we then get Monty Brown cutting into the picture. He says that because Jarrett's saying, who am I going to be facing? You need to tell me, who am I going to be facing? Monty Brown says that Jeff Jarrett is scared of him. He probably mentions the pounds, and that's pretty much it. So at this point, I'd love to know a little bit more about this pay-per-view, and if they really were sort of behind the scenes trying to throw together some
rambling,
something together, or what they were doing.
What did you think of Douglas and his overacting? I found it
facial
really
expressions were
entertaining,
like too much.
like, I think as soon as the initial shock had gone past, and I was like, okay, he's having fun with this. He's just throwing himself fully into it. I quite enjoyed it, but he's obviously trying to make himself irritating in a lot of ways, and he's doing it. But it was, I don't know. Well, I just found it really a strange idea for where he was used, but I quite enjoyed it in the end.
It's funny because the characters he's played, you wouldn't peg him as the backstage interview.
No.
You had him as the authority figure or something like that, an arrogant or aggressive sort of character. Like you say, he's playing about with it sort of thing.
I think he's almost playing it like he feels he should be the authority figure because the way he's laying into Zabisco at times is so aggressive with, like, there's a point where he never lets him answer. He's just badgering him with question after question after question.
I wonder if that's is that later on. He's like properly questioning him. Like, are you really going to do that? Yeah. Class. Okay. Our next match is match 3 on the card. It is Lance Hoyt versus Monty Brown. Lance Hoyt these days can be found in AEW as Lance Archer. Monty Brown can no longer be found in any wrestling promotion. You wondered where I was going with that. But he did appear in WWE as Marcus Von Cor. Is that right?
Corvon,
was it?
Yeah.
Really surprising. Not surprising that they took him, because I think there's a character there with Monty Brown, and finding out that he was an American football player, I think he's pretty decent in the ring actually, compared to, we've went through years of watching Steve McMichael, so he's pretty good in the ring.
There's a full Jeff Jarrett podcast episode talking about Monty Brown, because I think Conrad Thompson felt like he was the one, and where did it all go wrong? Why didn't it work? Why didn't he become the main guy? It was an interesting listen, because Jarrett, who's obviously in charge here, is massively in on him. But I think there was maybe the sort of questions about how badly he wanted it and things like that were maybe an issue. And I think Jarrett tried to talk him out of jumping to WWE, basically saying, stay here, be on TV, learn the ropes more, and then, in a couple of years, you can go. Mm-hmm. You'll have been a headliner here, and then you go. But he just wanted to go straight away, I think.
That's interesting. Yeah, that must have been 2006. He was at he was in WCW in 2006, okay. So it must be a short stay.
Yeah,
in TNA. What do you think? Big Hoyt versus Monty B.
I thought it was all right. It was again, it's pretty clear they're wanting to put over Monty Brown and strap the rocket to him. Hoyt's a big lad. He's a big, intimidating guy, and they play up to the strength and the power of him. But Monty Brown, I think the only thing that I was there were a couple of moments. There was definitely a moment where Monty Brown nearly landed on his head. I think it was off a hip toss or something like that. And I was thinking, how did that almost go as wrong as it looked like it did? And there was what was it? I wished he'd had some sort of better looking finishing sequence as well.
Not a fan of the pounds.
I wasn't. I felt like I was watching Jim Duggan or something like that right at the finish. Just felt like they could give him something a wee bit more interesting for that.
I feel like they got the pounce over.
Okay.
I think it works better with a 6-sided ring actually than a 3-point stance, whereas the pounds, do I have to say it like that? Is like them coming off the rope and just smashing them. So there's it's a bit car crashy compared to just a tackle sort of thing.
How much are you enjoying saying pounds?
Sorry?
How much I'm not going to say it that way. How much are you enjoying saying
the pow? Quite a lot. I'm sure it's incredibly annoying, so I'll stop it. I think they did quite a good job of getting both guys over in this match. Actually, they gave Hoyt a lot of offense, where it felt like he was just there to get beat.
Yeah, well, it was kind of talked around as this is the toughest match so far for Monty Brown.
Right.
So I think, there is the risk when you're putting him over, you bury Hoyt, which they didn't.
Didn't at all, no.
Yeah, I think he got a choke slam for a 2 right near the end of the match, I think, and quite a few power moves throughout the match. The crowd are with Monty Brown. I mean, I didn't love him, but they're with him, and that's the main thing. Yeah, he annoys me later on, but we'll get there.
Do you think Christopher Daniels feels a little bit shame calling his moonsault the best moonsault ever after watching Big Hoyt doing a moonsault?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe he should.
This was like someday, I don't know, that this felt like watching Test, like a young Test, but with better moves.
I had it in my notes that he physically looked and carried himself like Test. I thought he was far better in the ring than Christopher was. But
if any testicles listening, just take your issues with Adam. I'm a testicle myself.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, the look and the presentation and all that, and the way he carried himself, I could see similarities there. I didn't know he was still in the game, actually.
The Murder Hawk, Lance Archer.
Oh.
Jake Roberts was his manager in AEW.
Okay.
He was one of those guys that they didn't do very much with for a while.
Okay.
That was a decent match. Brown hits the pounds and gets the win.
Yeah.
Do you know who Brown faces the next month?
Jarrett.
Nah.
Same guy.
Captain Charisma.
Oh, do you know, I think you've actually told me that. I think you showed me an image of that.
I did.
Yeah.
Damn it.
I forgot. Very
Okay. I'm really interested to get your views on this next team.
Okay.
So we go backstage. Shane Douglas is with 3 Live Crew, which is made up of BG James, which is the Road Dogg, Ron Killings, and Conan. I think at this point, Ron the Truth Killings has had a run in WWF as K-Quick, hasn't he?
Yes.
Aye.
Yeah.
And was he in DX, kind of?
I think he was definitely aligned
with Road Dogg
at a point. Yeah, but I don't know if he was in the group.
Okay. So we've got this 3 Live Crew, and you've got Billy Gunn sort of trying to inject him into.
Yeah.
So there was a faction called Planet Jarrett, I think, before this. It had Jarrett and Billy Gunn and Monty Brown and I think America's Most Wanted, possibly.
Okay.
But Kip James is kind of moving over and he's saying, listen, you guys are facing Team Canada. There's 4 of them. I'll have your back. And Conan's having none of it, isn't he?
Yeah. So the way the announcers are kind of telling it is that Conan is very happy with the group that they've got, that they've put together as 3 Live Crew. And obviously, if Billy Gunn, or what's his name here?
Kip James.
If he is going to get involvement, I think they tell it quite naturally as a story that his concern is that Road Dogg, BG James, is going to just leave and align himself with his old partner, which I think is a fairly logical story. Yeah, so I think Conan is worried about that then breaking up the group.
Yes.
Which they tell as quite a logical story. And I wasn't massively a fan of 3 Live Crew.
Who's it Conan refers to a little biatch? He says someone's a little biatch. Is it Scott D'Amore he's talking about?
I think so.
It's class. I've never heard that word for a long time.
Although, I'm maybe gonna take some offence to that because I was all in on Scott D'Amore on this. What an annoying prick, but in a brilliant way.
Class. Do you know he runs TNA now?
I'd heard that, yeah.
So it's Team Canada, Bobby Roode, Eric Young, and a huge guy called A1 who's given me sort of Lex Luger.
Yeah.
You're nodding like with a grimace as if to say, yeah, me too, but in a bad way.
He's the one I was least sure about in the group when I was watching the match.
And they come out with Coach D'Amore. I love this. Any sort of era of wrestling, there's a Team Canada that come out to the Canadian national anthem. Brilliant. Versus 3 Live Crew, Conan, BG James, and Ron the Truth Killings. Straight off the bat, we get Mike Tenay talking about formerly known as the Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, and they used to be the New Age Outlaws and WWE Tag Team Champions. I was quite taken aback by that.
Yeah, I suppose, if everything they're saying, I always wonder how it works, because they're not trying to sell anything on that. They're not putting those names of characters on a billboard or anything like that for trying to sell their. So I assume they're allowed to say all that stuff. But yeah, I suppose the way you've probably heard it explained a few times in the past is it's probably okay for the smaller company to talk about the bigger one, but you don't do it the other way around, really. So yeah, there were a few things struck me here about, because they were talking about that, and my notes just say Road Dogg and Billy Gunn because I couldn't get my head around the new names, so it helped me in that sense. Yeah, have you ever listened to Road Dogg talking on his podcast?
No, massively, no.
Okay, so I think he is massively impaired during this run.
Oh, right, okay. So I've seen a shoot interview that I think it's Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, and maybe X-Pac have done. They're talking about Triple H and all that sort of stuff, and they're clearly impaired, like you say.
So he's pretty open about it now, but he's, I think, a lot of the time no real idea what's going on. And I was watching thinking, okay, is that happening here? I think he's always said he never took anything just before going in the ring, but he clearly wasn't at his best, let's say. There's like quite a lot of dicking around with him and Ron Killings. Like they do little dances and stuff like that before just dropping an elbow or whatever. And those were the moments I found myself really watching Road Dogg and being like, yeah, there's maybe nobody home right now.
Dear. Yeah, I've got Killings and Road Dogg dance far too much. I wasn't a fan of him lip syncing either.
Yeah.
Cringe meter was flying off the handle there.
Yeah. The crowd were chanting for the New Age
Outlaws.
Yeah.
Classy.
So
just what you want.
I suppose if you think that's going to happen, or if it is happening, you may as well reference it. There's no point in trying to pretend it's not happening. There was a point. This was the first point where I think I became a bit annoyed by some of the YouTube adverts as I was watching this.
Well, do you know what? I was watching most of this with my 9-year-old son, and he was like, "Oh, Dad, there's a way to skip the adverts. Did you know that?" And I was like, "No." And he started, and the advert was gone. So I'll show you. I'll tell you next. I'll send you a little hint on how to do that.
Okay.
The youth of today.
I think it happened once or twice right as somebody was going for a finishing sequence, and I was like,
you must have been quite gripped by this match.
I don't mean just in this match.
No, this match.
Through the show. I wasn't really gripped by this match, but I quite liked Team Canada, generally speaking.
Yep.
I mean, Bobby Roode's a good worker. We know that. We've seen him in WWE. We've seen him have a little bit of a run. It was struck me as like I fully see how Triple H would love a guy like Bobby Roode, because he can go in the ring, he carries himself a certain way. He's got something. Eric Young was there for a little bit, wasn't he? But he never had a big breakthrough.
Yeah, and I believe that they signed him to be in, like just recently, they'd signed him to be in Bray Wyatt's new stable before he passed away. And then he'd just been let go again. But yeah, Yeah, I believe he was. Yeah.
So there's some decent workers in this match. It just I think it got a bit messy for me again, and where do we end up with it's maybe Scott D'Amore. Is he trying to get involved with hockey sticks and
Yeah.
things like that? Yeah, and I also kind of wondered because we've been told that Billy Gunn's supposed to be there to back them up, even though Conan doesn't want it. He said he'll be there to back them up. He's sitting there in the crowd. He waits an awful long time before getting himself involved.
He's just sat at the top of the ramp for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. They sort of subvert your expectations because, well, come the end of it, D'Amore does get involved, like you say. I think he hits Road Dogg with the hockey stick, and Team Canada get the win. Then they jump Road Dogg, so James comes down and helps him, and it's at this point that they sort of offer Conan up to Billy Gunn, and he doesn't attack him. He instead helps out and wrecks the Team Canada guys with a steel chair, which I quite like, because a lot of time when you're watching wrestling, especially for people like us that have seen far too much and probably don't even enjoy watching wrestling that much, let's be honest. Like, I'm joking, but like you just think, oh god, he's going to hit Conan or whatever, but he never.
Yeah,
he's quite honest with his intentions.
Yeah, because they kind of they play it up a couple of times through the show that he is trying to help the whole group, not just Road Dogg. He is trying to be there for all of them. I don't know how long that lasts, and when they end up inevitably putting the two of them together, which I assume happens at a point. But I suppose if you're a company and you've got the two signed, you kind of have to at a point go with it. The crowd are sitting there chanting for it. But yeah, they did. They kept you. If any, they maybe just kept you waiting rather than deliver straight away and have you think, is he genuine? Is he? Because Conan sells an excellent surprised look when he gets saved by Billy Gunn. Yeah, because he's the one that's been saying, no, don't want anything to do with him, keep him out, we've got our group. And yeah, when the chair shot's going on the Team Canada guys, he is selling surprise pretty big.
I do like Conan, but at some point in this match, he takes his shoe off and throws it at somebody, and they sell it like they've been clotheslined from hell. They go flying over the top rope.
Stuff like that doesn't help.
Nah. It's at this point I was kind of thinking, like, and I think this sort of comes out the end of the pay-per-view for me. I'm enjoying seeing sort of fresh faces and the TNA homegrown, if you want, guys, rather than the likes of the Road Doggs and other people that we've seen before.
Yeah.
Okay, franchise. Shane Douglas is backstage with Larry Zbyszko. He is looking for answers, but Larry has no answers for him. He's waiting on a call from upper management, much to Douglas's unhappiness. We get some build-up to the next match, which is the Ultimate X match. I assume they're sort of trying to give you a bit of a flavour for what's to come as far as what the Ultimate X match includes. It seems like you can have X Division matches involving people who are in the X Division, and you can have an Ultimate X match, which involves six-sided ring plus ropes above the ring in an X with turnbuckles and either a belt or an X hanging in the middle of the X. I think that gives you a number one. That makes you number one contender if you're.
It must. Yeah, that's I was quite enjoying I definitely seen an Ultimate X match that had AJ Styles and Chris Daniels and maybe Samoa Joe in it.
Right.
But I wasn't. I definitely knew the name going into this Chris Sabin. I didn't really know the other names. And I've been looking as they're talking about this match and, basically having to climb along the ropes to then get to the title or the X, in this case the X, and get that down, and whoever gets it wins. And I'm thinking this is just me being middle-aged and having had too much turkey dinner and all that, thinking this is physically impossible. There's no way that somebody can do this. But then when I was trying to sort of, as the match gets going, I was trying to think, well, from a psychology point of view, you have to eliminate one at least, if not two opponents, because what becomes clear really quickly is how easy it is for somebody to just pull you down when you're climbing your way across. And if anything, you're leaving yourself really exposed by doing that.
Yeah.
So I quite like the psychology that you can put there for how this match is going to play out. It's an interesting concept. I think their concepts, their sort of gimmick matches are quite hit and miss in TNA, but I didn't hate the idea of this.
Yeah, I really like the concept of this. It made me think of Gladiators, and it's a bit like wrestling mixed with Gladiators sort of thing, which is,
Nice.
I mean, 13-year-old me likes that, like, definitely. And it allowed for a bit of innovation as far as, some moves that you've never seen before, but particularly like a power bomb from, power bomb someone down from the hanging rope.
Yeah.
Just some really good. I think this, unfortunately, this being the first Ultimate X match that I had seen, I think I built up my expectations, and maybe this match didn't meet them. Probably because the X fell down halfway through the match and they had to get a ladder and put it back up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It was all right. It was pretty good.
I thought,
entertaining.
All three showed great agility. There's some, like, I liked, there's knocking somebody off the ropes and then into an atomic drop. There was a nice sequence by Sabin. I think he throws one opponent into the other, then hits a DDT, and it just
that was really cool. I like that as well.
I wasn't like, I felt like they were. I thought at the start they were positioning Matt Bentley.
Well, have we even said who this match is?
Oh, I don't. Maybe not. I think we mentioned Chris Sabin, but yeah.
It's a so it's a triple threat: Chris Sabin versus Petey Williams versus Matt Bentley. Is Chris Sabin? No, none of them's a champion because this is for the number one contender.
Yeah, for the number one contender. Yeah. So is it Matt Bentley? I feel like they're talking about him like he is a star or well on his way to becoming a big star. I think it's referenced they've all been in these type of matches before.
Right.
And we've got like the X coming down does kind of ruin
it does a wee bit.
So I think you said to me in a message, you were thinking as you were watching, like, I'm surprised the X doesn't just fall down or something like that, and then it did.
It looked quite precarious.
Yeah, which isn't ideal. But I thought there were some decent movesets. I think what I came away from it, or what I was thinking part of the way through, is I was enjoying it enough as an exhibition of some moves and things like that, but I hadn't been given a reason to care enough about who the characters were, why I should be pulling for one of them to win. I felt like, and again, we're watching, like we talked about in WCW all the way through, we're watching these in isolation. So I don't have the characters. I knew, was it Petey Williams was the leader of Team Canada.
Yep.
But beyond that, there wasn't an awful lot about who the other guys were. So it was more just a sort of the odd sequence of moves, which I thought were often quite impressive. That was kind of it.
And you've spoke before about how you find it difficult to get invested in a match without some sort of storyline or some sort of background to it somewhere, whereas this felt quite AEW-ish in that it was just quite a lot of spots and moves and wow, look what these three guys can all do together, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which I don't massively hate, but I appreciate what you've said before, that you like a bit of, need to get invested.
We get there's a moment where I think it's Bentley wraps his legs around Saban's head as they're trying to. I think Bentley's climbing and Saban's maybe on the mat, and it gets countered into a powerbomb. We get the X drops twice, doesn't it? Yeah, the X drops twice. And this is one of the things that really annoyed me about the match. So the X drops, it falls off. And the announcers are pretty quick to tell us it's going to be hung back up again.
Yeah, they're like, no, that's not how you win. You can't do that.
Because when it drops,
somebody picks it
someone
up,
just walks along and picks it up. And you're like, no, that's not going to be it. So you're basically told, well, obviously you can't win like that. And then the X is back up. Saban and Bentley are sort of climbing their way towards it. Petey Williams has just got back in the ring. Saban and Bentley knock each other down, and the X is wobbling. And Petey Williams just gets himself underneath and it drops right into his lap. And I'm thinking, well, obviously it's going to be hung back up again.
Yeah.
But no, this time he gets the win.
They're so quick to just ring the bell. Normally you see the ref sort of calling for the bell, but now it's like, ding, 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 that's it now. That'll do. The thing is, if it hadn't fallen the first time and that was the way that the match ended, it would have been a really cool sort of scripted way for it to end with a heel winning that way.
It made me wonder, and I've not looked at anything, but it made me wonder if the first time it happened was supposed to be the finish and he just wasn't in place or something like that. Because he was right in position the second time it dropped.
And both Bentley and Saban afterwards looked furious. And you just, they've maybe just done that off the cuff, and if they have, then well played. It's quite cool.
Yeah. At this point, my Wi-Fi went off.
Oh, no.
And what had happened was my niece was in the house, and she just decided to go up to the wall and switch off. So I had a few minutes to then ready myself mentally for it getting back on and whatever the next matchup was going to be. I did not look at all at the card before watching this. So other than the matches they speak about in advance, everything was a surprise as it came up, which was quite enjoyed.
What a rascal.
Yeah.
She's not getting invited over again.
She's banned now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. Okay, so next we go to a video preview for the tag team title match. We get a bit of backstory behind America's Most Wanted and the Naturals and Team 3D, who must have pretty recently come over from WWE. Basically, so it's funny because it was a preview for America's Most Wanted versus the Naturals, but it's pretty much America's Most Wanted beating down Team 3D with Jarrett's help.
Yeah.
But that plays into what happens later on. I text you. This is quite an entertaining, and I like the look of America's Most Wanted. I think you said the same. The Naturals. We always like a tag team that have got similar clothes, the stuff that they're wearing, like matches. They've got a tag team name. They do tandem moves. That's right in our wheelhouse. Liked all of that. I felt like this was overbooked by about 4 finishes. Yeah. But apart from that, it was pretty good. But it just felt like and another one.
I liked America's Most Wanted. I like the alliance with Jarrett. I think forming a faction. I like the addition of Gail Kim. I thought it fit well and nicely. The thing that took me by surprise, let's say early on, is you've got this team, this badass team, this heel team, but the odds are quite quickly stacked against them. By one of them getting injured, and the other having to fight like a handicap match for what felt like a while. I thought that was a very strange way to start this off.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know if Russo is actually on creative here, but it was. And when I didn't think about it until we got to this match, but then I thought, I wonder if that is Russo. What about so who've we got? Harris and Storm are America's Most Wanted, and Douglas and Stevens are the Naturals.
Yeah.
there's a move that Storm does where he has one of them up in a razor's edge and then just spins round really fast and lets the guy go.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah. Like, I wasn't sure how much control you could possibly have, like, in terms of trying to protect the safety of your opponent, because you can't know.
It's like throwing somebody off a train and expecting them to
Yeah.
land on their feet.
Yeah. It was that was a bit much for me. I wasn't very keen on that.
It's a bit crazy. I would say about three. So, like you say, one of America's Most Wanted gets hammered against the guardrail, and they're out of commission for quite some time. They're back in the ring. One of the Naturals gets isolated until we get the hot tag. And then the match sort of changes again. One of America's Most Wanted brings Salt into the ring in the most unsubtle way you've ever seen. He attempts to throw it in one of the Naturals' face, but he gets it kicked into his own face. He ends up doing his finishing move on the other guy from America's Most Wanted, which is pretty good. Then it changes again, and America's Most Wanted handcuff one of the Naturals to the guardrail. Mm-hmm. I did enjoy this, but then eventually, I think it was after the Salt, and then they handcuffed him. I was like, oh, this is too much. Like, how long is this going to go for?
Like, how was that? See, when the handcuff spot came out, right? My thought was, right, everything that's happened since the start, don't do that. Have the Naturals handcuff one of the guys to the guardrail right at the start of the match.
Yep.
And then they absolutely batter the other one. Their heels, they're horrific. They're doing this. It's brutal. I put the babyface in peril and at disadvantage. It was just such a weird way to do it. I think because there'd been so many of these moments through the match, I kind of lost interest. It's like, I just end it now and we'll move on, which was a shame because, like we mentioned, I didn't dislike the Naturals, and I liked America's Most Wanted. I thought they were a good package as a team, but
they look cool.
I was just done.
Yeah. And there didn't seem to be much cohesion in a story that America's Most Wanted would win this match.
Yeah.
It was just like, let's do all this crazy stuff. I want to do this, I want to do this. And they've got the end of the match sorted, so how do we get there, sort of thing. Yeah. America's Most Wanted win after one of the Naturals gets hit in the head with a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I did
obviously...
like... There was a couple of things I liked, though, I have to say. There's tag team finishers in this match. Like, finishing moves as a team.
Yes.
Which have, I think, become pretty rare, certainly on WWE programming over many years. But it's a bit of a throwback, or it feels to me like a bit of a throwback to old school tag team wrestling. So I like those. But I did not like, there's a chair shot to the head of Douglas by Storm, I think it is.
When he's handcuffed?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Didn't like that.
And like it? No. As if all the different things they did in the match wasn't enough, they then have to start leathering him about the head with a chair as well. I think they do the demolition finishing move at one point.
Yeah, I think they do.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see.
Yep.
Okay, what did you think of James Mitchell? They're the best set of eyebrows since Scorsese.
So I've seen a few, like, he's one that I remembered when the times I have watched AEW, because I think Abyss has been a bit of a staple there. I think he was always on the big shows. So you would get James Mitchell with Abyss. He's a bit over the top. He's quite a character. But I had some issues with the setup of this.
Okay, let's talk about it then. So we're previewing the Monsters Ball.
Yeah.
The Monsters Ball concept is that the participants are locked in a dark room for 24 hours before the match, no food, no drink, and then they're like let out for the match. So is that what are you saying? You had some issues with the concept of that?
Yeah, like, so I I think I get what they're getting at. You hear horrific stories about people locking up dogs and before fighting and stuff like that. I was thinking this is the kind of thing that they're going for here.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Is it? God almighty, I've never heard that before. That's horrible.
But no, they didn't.
Well, Abyss was there backstage for that.
Like, James Mitchell's right there. You could chuck him a bottle of water. I didn't, like, I don't know, like, they're selling it as this brutal match. I don't think it needs that. I don't think it needs somebody saying they haven't had food or water for 24 hours. I mean, they have. Come on. If I'm trying to suspend my disbelief here, I know these guys have had food and water, and I know that they've had them that day. I just felt it was unnecessary.
I think I agree. I kind of agree with you, but I also quite like the sort of different sort of aspect of it, because if it was just a 4-way hardcore match, we'd be sitting here complaining that it's just an ECW throwback.
I suppose.
I get what you're saying, though. This is Abyss's match, isn't it? Monsters Ball.
Yeah, I think if we have a Monsters Ball every year, I think he'll be the constant. He'll be in it every year.
This is what I liked. I thought this James. I need to read more about this James Mitchell guy. If he was in the territories, I bet he was brilliant. I bet they hated him wherever he went. He says, inviting Abyss to a Monsters Ball is like inviting a veteran with a Purple Heart to a game of paintball. I loved that.
Amazing.
He goes on to start talking about how, like, it'll be great to start off with, and then they'll crack and start losing their head, sort of thing. I liked him. He's very camp and sort of, I don't know, he would have fitted in like 90s WWF sort of stuff, wouldn't he?
Absolutely. And I like the idea of an Abyss type character having somebody speaking for him. Yeah. I don't want to hear him speaking. I'd rather he never did. So I think that worked.
What is Abyss supposed to be? Like a mental patient type of asylum?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I remember when I first saw him, maybe the unfortunate thing was I'd already seen Mankind, and I was like, is it just like a version of Mankind? He's bigger. He's a big guy.
Yeah. He's Kane-esque, this sort of size of him.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's probably about right. Escaped mental patient type situation. It's I've actually got some positive things about James Mitchell in my notes as well. Just saying, I really like the stuff he's saying, the way he comes across. It's entertaining. He's very entertaining.
I hope we get more of him. So we get a Monsters Ball 4-way match, which was kind of like a love letter to ECW a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Sabu versus Jeff Hardy versus the Man Beast Rhino versus Abyss. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest and say I've spoken in the past how I quite like when WCW did their hardcore division, and it was isolated, and it was just like that one match where there was hardcore rules, and it wasn't like everybody's got barbed wire and everybody's smacking everybody with steel chairs and whatever. And I liked this for that reason as well. This was mental, absolute mayhem, but it was just this match that was like that.
Yeah, I suppose the fact that they've made it this type of match kind of isolates it in terms of, it's only here where this is going to happen, which is fine. I did still I think a message is saying, as soon as all the weapons came out, I was like, it's not my favourite type of match. The other thing with this as a negative, I didn't hate all of it. There were some bits of it I liked. But the other thing that I didn't like was once it gets to that kind of setup, I find it quite hard to follow because there's so many different things going on at the same time.
They split off 2 and 2 almost immediately. Yeah. Jeff Hardy and Abyss away off into the crowd, Sabu and Rhino somewhere else. It's impossible for the commentary team, let alone the people watching, to keep on top of. I think Jeff dives off something pretty early on, doesn't he? Does he
Yeah.
climb up into the crowd and does like a double axe handle?
Yeah,
jump in.
it's off like an entrance way from in the crowd.
Yeah.
The first one.
You've got Sabu just launching the chairs at people. That's brutal. It's the same as that move, America's Most Wanted move. Like, how do you control that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've got it in my mind that was quite often a Sabu thing.
Mm-hmm. No,
like, rather than hit people with the chairs, they'd just throw them at folk.
Abyss does some sort of horrible backbreaker type thing on Jeff Hardy, which looked brutal.
Yeah.
There's only one. Well, we just talk about the talking point of the match. Will we? We just jumped to it. Well, to be fair, like Sabu goes through about 40 tables in this match.
It does. Yeah.
But as Jeff and Abyss are fighting a way up on the towards the crowd, up towards the ramp, in the entranceway, they start setting up 2 tables. Eventually, Abyss gets laid on the tables, and Jeff starts doing his old like sort of looking around everywhere. So Abyss is down a level from the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's the stage, and then there's the arch that the wrestlers come through as an entranceway. Then above that entranceway, there's some sort of podium.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff Hardy takes a ladder to that and climbs all the way up to that. It's really difficult to tell how high in the area is because the camera shot is coming from a way down where Abyss is looking up the way. So it probably makes it look a lot steeper than it actually is. But it's still some way that he dives.
Yeah.
He surpasses, he can only pass the stage by what we would say a bow hair.
Yeah. I think the thing, when I saw it, it freaked me out because to land on Abyss, just again from the angle we can see, he has to not clear the lip of the ramp by too much, otherwise he'll
overshoot.
Past Abyss.
Yep.
And the fact it's what is it? Is it a swanton?
Yep.
Is it? Yeah. Means that he is going to be.
His head's going to be sort of passing the stage.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And when you see, like, he hits it and he executes it and he's fine. But all I could see after that was if he is just a foot out or a couple of feet out, his head is going to smack. Yeah. And it would probably kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was watching it, that's what, rather than wow, my mind immediately went to nah, because he could have way too easily died there. Yeah,
I think it's one of the of all the bumps and dives and like the Shane McMahon thing of falling from that great height that he did, and all those things. Mankind falling off the cell. I think it's one of the most reckless things I've ever seen.
Yeah, because most of those were straight down. You didn't have to clear something. Your landing spot was below you and a little bit out. The fact he had to clear that stage area to then connect that's what freaked me out. Like obviously we've probably talked a few times about the Mankind Hell in a Cell, and the first one maybe, it looks sore. Everything about it tells you it's sore, but the one that where he went through was the one that really hurt him because of the landing. And I always think how, I assume Jeff Hardy's very good at controlling his landing and knowing where he needs to hit, but just for that, for there to be any element of chance or risk, and the thing that annoyed me that message about was it's not even the end of the match. If you're going all out, bloody WrestleMania main event in the finishing spot or something like that, do your thing if you must. But for it to just be
your
a
Lesnar
moment,
shooting star press or something like that.
Yeah. But for it to just be a moment in this match, that I bet that people who were there went away and talked about it after, but I just thought the risk level was far too high.
Yeah, that should have been them out the match. Like, they shouldn't
Yeah.
have come back in the match.
Yeah.
Like, Abyss is in the ring, like, within
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Probably less. And, you know, I think he catches Sabu and throws him over the ropes through a table as he gets back in the ring. So for that point of view, I agree with what you're saying as far as that should have been enough to take them out the match. Oh, it's crazy. Crazy. Rhino goes Abyss through a corner table. There's so much table action.
Yeah.
And to win this match, Rhino hits Jeff Hardy with a pile driver off the second rope that seeing on slow motion looks absolutely disgusting. Like his neck and shoulders are all over the place.
Yeah, there was something about that because it's like Hardy pops out of position as he's about to land it, and by the time Rhino actually hits the ground, he's almost already on his neck. Jeff Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't. I watched it and thought that can't be the way that you're supposed to take that. Yeah.
They say this a lot, but I can remember seeing a match like that. Very ECW-esque.
Yeah.
Throw New Jack into that and get some gangster rap playing in the background and you'd be right at home.
Some of it was quite entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they probably had the right mix of people in there because you know Jeff Hardy's going to jump off something. You know Abyss is going to do all his sort of his strong power, big moves. It's sort of be also a bit of a scary, just keeps coming at you type performer. Sabu is going to do some crazy shit.
He's so controlled, Sabu. Yeah. The way he just he glides about the place.
He does. And I always really liked Rhino. Like he's never going to be, you know, getting your 5-star matches and stuff like that. But I think he's a good worker, and I think he's impactful. You know, he'll do things, and you'll remember seeing him on the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like Rhino as well. So that is not the end of. I don't think any of these men, is it? We see them. Do we see them all again?
Are they all back? Yeah, I think they're maybe all back.
More Monsters Ball matches. I did watch the pay-per-view after this, and Sabu and Abyss have a barbed wire match where the ropes are replaced with barbed wire.
No, okay.
Nah. Too far.
I'll leave them to that one.
Backstage, Legend Larry decides to have a 10-man gauntlet match to decide who will face Jeff Jarrett. Shane Douglas's input is just to completely repeat that. You know, like, he just says exactly what he's just said. Jeff Jarrett's completely pissed with that. He's not happy at all.
Couldn't see why Jeff Jarrett would be pissed.
Like that's the best possible outcome, surely.
There is a moment where Douglas jumps the gun a wee bit because he says 10 men who have already competed here tonight will compete yet again, and then the winner faces Jarrett. Now, I think there's maybe one that ends up in it that didn't compete previously, but I'm sitting there thinking, Jeff has some nerve being pissed off with this.
Absolutely.
The guys have had one match, they have to have another match, and then he just gets to pick the bones of whatever's left.
Absolutely. Come on, Jeff. King of the mountain. Next up is a bona fide 5-star classic in my book.
I love this.
A 30-minute Iron Man match for the X Division Championship. I think they tell us it's a rematch from a match that they had earlier in the year. It's Christopher Daniels versus AJ Styles, who is the X Division champion. For me, Adam, this is the best Iron Man match I've seen.
Nice.
I thought it was tremendous.
I really enjoyed this. I was thinking, see, when it started, I had no real idea how they were going to go with it. You know, I think in my mind, I worried that it was going to be like 10-9 or something like that. It's just like
back and forward
of quick big moves and all that kind of thing. But a few minutes in, it didn't take that long, I was thinking, these guys have seen, you know, matches like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and I think the announcers help you play off how well these two know each other and how that may make it difficult
to take advantage and get a fall and things like that because they know what the other is likely to do. So you get a lot of counters, but they're not ridiculous counters. They are, I'm getting out of that move counters. It's really well paced, I thought.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, that's what I was going to mention as well. They start off really fast. There's a great little spot where AJ Styles boots Christopher Daniels over the barricade right into the crowd in the front row. And then the way that the camera's positioned, Styles comes just flying out of nowhere right into the crowd, just clears the barricade and no more.
Yeah, that was great.
But from there, they slow it down, but not in a way, we've definitely spoke about this before, WrestleMania 12, Brett and Sean. It's slow for quite a long period.
Yeah.
For multiple periods. This didn't feel like that. It genuinely felt like AJ Styles was taking him down and controlling him to control him.
Yeah.
Which I really liked.
I thought you talked about the announce team, kind of being there in the background, not trying to make themselves the star and all that. I thought they did that well here while still explaining, because there's a few moments where Don West is getting a little bit excitable and almost frustrated on behalf of the performers, and Mike Tenay's bringing him back a wee bit to say, this is a half-hour match. These things may not be getting them falls right now, but with every move and every second that ticks by, these guys are getting more and more worn out. So I thought they were doing a good job of telling the story and always keeping the stakes seem like they were really high. And it's the X Division title. It's obviously a big sort of selling point of TNA. It's a thing that is just theirs. It's not a thing in WWE. It's you have a cruiserweight or something like that. It's different from that. So I thought the importance of the match came across really well.
Yep, 100%. I like what you said there about the commentary team. I didn't pick it up, but now that you're saying it, I appreciate it. I like that. Well paced. I think about halfway through, they start to pick it up again after they've taken that time to let AJ Styles sort of control it for quite some time. I think this might be the first Christopher Daniels match I've ever seen.
Okay.
I was really impressed with him. I thought he was amazing.
Yeah, I know he had a series of matches with AJ Styles, and then sometimes Samoa Joe was in the mix with one or both of them. And I think they were all just really good wrestlers, and it just worked. I think. Did you ever hear the story that he was under consideration to be the higher power
towards the end of this match? It's all I could think about.
And Vince, in the end, changed his mind and was like, he's not.
He's too small or something.
Yeah, and I don't know, did he mean that purely physically, or the fact that he wasn't known, or whatever it was. But if he was younger now, if he was this age now, Triple H would sign him in a heartbeat.
Oh, 100%. Him and
he's
Daniel
really
Bryan or something like that put on a hell of a match.
Yeah.
Bryan Danielson.
Yeah,
there's so much back and forward here, but I think you kind of alluded to it. It's not back and forward in a way of like, I'll do my finisher and you'll kick out, then you do your finisher and I'll kick out. It's more reversals and ways of getting out of moves that they've become familiar with through facing each other. It's difficult to describe actually, because there's so much in it. There's so much like really impressive technical wrestling. AJ Styles is just amazing.
What I found as I was going through, because it's interesting, I think sometimes when you don't know necessarily what the finishing moves are of the participants, I was seeing some big moves at times. Like there's definitely a moment where AJ Styles seems like he's in trouble, and it's like a desperation act. He hits they refer to it as the Pele kick on Daniels, but he can't make a quick cover. He's exhausted. He's been beaten down. So it's not a case of his finisher isn't, one of his signature moves isn't getting the 3 count. It's that he cannot get there to make the cover quick enough to take advantage of it. So I thought they told that side of it really well. And I thought as well there were different guys are on top through various points in the match, and every now and then I didn't find myself. I think the clock's always there in the corner, but I wasn't really looking at it. And there was a point where I looked, and about 15 minutes had passed, and I thought, oh, okay, it's still 0-0. I still don't know what way they're going to go with this, but I didn't ever feel like I was clock watching. I wasn't like, and then it got to 5 minutes, and I was thinking, okay. But then for some reason, I was overcome by like WCW booking fear. And I convinced myself that someone was going to get what would have been a decisive pin
like
with
2
seconds left.
Yep.
And it would go 1, 2, time would run out. And you're like, it's 0-0. That's it. It's the end of the match. And then as it was pulling towards its final sequence, I thought, oh no, they are. They're doing this. And then they didn't, which, for me was a pleasant surprise.
Yep. With 2 minutes, I've got in my notes here, there's 2 minutes to go. I have no idea how this is going to finish, which is just like almost impossible to do, I think. This is the type of match, or this is the type of ending that WCW tried to do, but failed, I think.
Yeah.
The fact that AJ Styles wins it with 2 seconds to go didn't bother me at all. I mean, I think the fact that it's so close, it's only 1-0 within the space of 30 minutes is perfectly sort of sums up the way that these two know each other and wrestled against each other.
I really liked the timing of it, because there are a couple of attempts right at the end. Like there's a jawbreaker and a kick by Daniels, and he's going for, I think it's referred to as Angel's Wings move, and there's maybe about 30 seconds left at that point. AJ counters, and then he, like, what is it he actually does to get the Styles Clash? He gets the Styles Clash, and I'm looking at the time, because I'm still convinced they're doing this WCW thing. And I thought, right, and he set him up for it, and there's 8 seconds on the clock. And I thought, they might still do it, because it might just be that he can't cover him. And he gets the cover, I think, with 5 seconds showing on the clock. But that's decisive, because it's impossible for Daniels to actually get anything. There's less than, even if it was an immediate cover or something like that, there's less than 3 seconds left on the clock. I really enjoyed it. I felt really in it, like I was gripped and absorbed in the match from right at the start of it.
Yeah, same. Just like I said, I think not having a clue where they were going and how they were going to end it and who was going to win and how they were going to do it, I think I felt the same, completely gripped. End up coming out that thinking that X division is like the division to watch now. That's elevated higher than the heavyweight title for me. It feels quite intercontinental title-ish in that it looks like guys that are at the top of that sort of glass ceiling sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the fans probably saw it that way for a long time. The X Division was like theirs. It was their thing, and for their guys, not the guys that were moving across.
It's amazing, like somebody. It's amazing to think that those guys, somebody never watched that match and tried to poach both of them. Absolutely brilliant. Watch that match if you can. It's an absolute classic.
I heard there was I was listening to Kurt Angle's podcast on Sunday, and he was talking about, like, there was always this story that when Hogan and Bischoff come in, they didn't know who AJ Styles was, and they weren't wanting to do anything with him. But Angle was kind of disputing that. He was like, look, they might, you might have this idea of Hogan and Bischoff, but if you actually look at results, they actually, once Hogan and Bischoff are there, AJ Styles beats Kurt Angle 3 matches in a row.
Wow.
And they're like, they're paying me a lot of money. You can't tell me that they don't see something in AJ Styles if they're putting him over on me 3 in a row. They may have wanted to pull more character or personality out or something, but they definitely knew what was there. They could see something there.
So Angle's Angle's run in TNA crosses over with Hogan, doesn't it?
Yeah, Hogan and Bischoff are brought in, and yeah,
That's
I
amazing
think
to think that.
there's an attempt even to do Monday nights
Mm-hmm.
at
I
a
knew
point,
that.
and I think that was maybe driven by the ambition of having folk like Hogan and Bischoff there.
I'm sure it was Hogan and Bischoff's idea to get rid of the six-sided. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's all still to come, Adam. Our next match is the 10-man gauntlet match, and I mean we're sort of. I was a bit like, oh right, we're straight into that.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably going to be quite a difficult match to talk about, simply because it's like the big sort of parts about this match is the people coming out.
Yeah, I've got some notes about it, and I've got each entrant and elimination.
Oh wow. Okay, so it starts off
okay.
Samoa Joe and Ron Killings.
Yeah. So the idea is it's those two for 2 minutes, and then every minute another participant's going to join the match.
And when it gets down to 2, they then have a pinfall wins that.
Yes.
Quite a cool concept, actually.
Yeah. Didn't hate it. So yeah, they quickly talk through the rules. Truth's doing some like mocking.
Nice.
Joe.
Yeah. Joe kicks his face off.
Yeah, Joe never looks like a guy you would fuck with. I mean, yeah. We've got Sabu coming in. He looks absolutely beat to hell when he comes in. He's got a chair with him.
I ended up looking up Sabu's age after this because I was like, he's like Arn Anderson.
He's so beat up here, but he'll be loving life.
What age do you think he is now?
Or
I know what age he is now, so I could work out. So say roughly 20 years.
Right. Okay. I'll guess here he's 40.
Mm-hmm. I'd be roughly that.
Yeah.
But age is worse now.
His face was selling his age. He's throwing chairs about, doing his jump on the ropes thing. I loved the way he used to run on the ropes and spring off them and stuff like that. Joe, again, I think just had enough, sends the chair into the knee of Sabu. Big Lance Hoyt is out next.
Yep.
Got some offense by Joe. It's the DDT. The crowd are chanting Joe for Joe. Abyss the next out, and I'm starting to think as I'm watching it, we need an elimination or two here, or it's going to get awful busy awful quickly.
Yeah.
The crowd pop for a stare down between Joe and Abyss.
They do.
Yeah.
Wonder if we'll get that paid back. Surely at some point.
They definitely seem into it.
They have themselves a bit of a chop off.
Yeah. And then I think it's Ron Killings that gets himself involved for some reason, jumping in and getting involved in that fight. I would have just left them to it myself. Jeff Hardy comes out next. He is hobbling like hell. But at least the performers were selling that they weren't. I would have probably been really annoyed if somebody came out looking fresh as a daisy.
Smiling.
Yeah. There's Monty Brown comes out next. He joins us.
He does. He hits the on Sabu.
So we're about to get to my issue with Monty Brown.
What does Monty Brown do?
So we've got Jeff Hardy charging at Monty Brown, who I think is supposed to just like throw him over the top, and so they kind of both end up going over, and Monty Brown's eliminated. The whole thing looked a bit messy.
What I would have said happens is Monty eliminates Jeff Hardy and then throws himself out the ring.
Yeah, that's what it is. So it maybe was supposed to be they both went over together.
Yeah.
And Monty has failed, I think, to go over, so then throws himself over, and then the announcers are trying to explain it like, oh, Monty didn't know the rules, and then like I thought, well, are you just making him sound a bit stupid now? Because he's basically eliminated himself after fucking up, I think is the way that's going.
Yeah.
We get
the Man Beast is out next, is he?
Yes, Rhino's out next. There's a group of them try to eliminate Abyss, but he survives that attempt. Hoyt comes in, tries to have a go at Rhino. Rhino hits him, big clothesline, sends him out, eliminates Lance Hoyt. Billy Gunn in next, so he's fresh. He's the guy that had not been in a match beforehand.
You would think he's going to win it, wouldn't you? Just
when I saw him
fact.
come out, I assumed he was going to win it. Yeah. And then we're told there'll be one more entrant to come. There's suggestion it's likely to be Raven, but no. The entrant that comes out as the final one is a very badly hobbling AJ Styles.
I probably burst out laughing when he started coming out because he could barely walk.
Yeah, he didn't need this right now. The thing that annoyed me a wee bit was they massively played on the emotion at the end of the Daniels and Styles match. Like, he looks incredibly emotional that he's just gone through this and all that. And then he's just having to hobble out for this match again. We've got... There's a bit of confusion because they don't point out the fact, they miss it, that Sabu gets eliminated. And I think the camera maybe didn't catch it or something like that, but Don West mentions it as Sabu gone, and I think Mike Tenay's like, no, I don't think so, and then it gets confirmed a little bit later on he has been eliminated. Abyss throws Billy Gunn onto the apron, and then it's like he's then trying to eliminate Killings. Billy Gunn is trying to keep Killings in. It didn't come off brilliantly.
They made a mess of that as well.
Yeah, because I don't know that Killings actually looked in that much danger of elimination, but Gunn just, the story is he took one for the team and basically eliminated himself trying to save Killings. AJ Styles with another Pele kick on Killings. Killings sent over. Gunn again tries to stop him from hitting the ground. Joe just bangs into Killings and knocks him out. So that's Killings gone. Down to 4, final 4: Abyss, Rhino, Joe, and AJ. Joe with a choke.
Yep.
Yeah, Abyss walks up behind, so that's on AJ. Abyss walks up behind them, pushes them both over, so we're down to Abyss and Rhino.
The fans are gutted. I think they wanted Joe to win this.
Yeah. His time will come. It'll be fine. Big gore by Rhino, and then he eliminates Abyss. Rhino will face Jarrett. They're talking about the fact Rhino's, just been through this as well as his previous match. He's a broken man.
Do you think he's had food?
No, wouldn't get it.
He is a man beast.
Yeah. I was then very surprised. I think it was mentioned earlier in the card. I just don't think I picked up on it. Tito Ortiz is coming out.
Why?
Like, I remember, like, we got a wee bit into UFC in some of the, like, when it became mainstream, some of the early stages of that. And Tito Ortiz was a thing. He was on, like, the show, wasn't he? The Ultimate
Fighter.
Yeah.
He had his rivalries with Shamrock and with Chuck Liddell.
Yeah. Tito Ortiz out as a special ref as ordered by the living legend Larry Zbyszko.
I think TNA and UFC had a bit of a partnership thing going, and they were advertising on UFC TV and stuff like
that. Thing I did not expect to see. So Jarrett comes out. He's fresh as a daisy. He's got his guitar. That didn't surprise me. He's come out like through this pyro and the smoke and all that, and then he's signalling to the back. And I'm expecting to just see, America's Most Wanted. Gail Kim.
I thought it was just for Gail Kim.
But no, there's a casket. I can't say I've ever associated Jeff Jarrett with caskets.
No, and it's also not like it's a built-up rivalry where he wants to. He's just a bad
didn't know who he was
bastard.
going to be facing until 2 minutes before.
Yep. And they said Jeff Jarrett has said that someone will go home in a casket.
Yeah.
Oh well, he's a man of his word, I suppose.
Yeah. That threw me off right from the start. I was like, so this is a thing. Jeff Jarrett and The Undertaker are the two casket wrestlers?
I thought Rhino looked like he was made of rubber. When he came out, he just looked absolutely goosed, and who could blame him?
Yeah.
Pretty relatively short match, wasn't it?
Yeah, quite a lot of nonsense in the aftermath, but yeah.
Some interesting stuff going on. Gail Kim at one point just takes it upon herself to try and dive on Rhino, but luckily for Tito Ortiz, he catches her and ejects her from the match.
He takes his eye off the ball of the match a wee bit, though.
He does.
He seems to make a point of carrying her or walking her all the way up the
far,
ramp.
Yeah.
And he's forgotten there's even a match on the go here. Maybe all part of Jeff's master plan.
So this allows Jarrett to smash Rhino right in the head as he attempts a goal, which is quite cool.
Yeah, it looked like it looked in a way like he ran right into it, but knowing he uses the gore, it at least made sense because he missed the first swing, didn't he, Jarrett?
Yep.
And then Rhino's going for the gore, and he just runs straight into the guitar shot.
That gets a 2 count from Tito. He makes his way from the very top of the ramp to the ring very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair to him, Jarrett has got another guitar from somewhere and goes for another shot, but he gets gored.
Mm-hmm.
And pinned for the 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
The Man Beast is NWA Heavyweight Champion. He wins his... Did he win the Monsters Ball? Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
He wins his third match of the night.
Yeah. Won all 3.
Incredible.
Yep.
We get a bit of aftermath. America's Most Wanted come down. They could have been down 3 seconds earlier and stopped their man getting pinned there. But they ambush Rhino. 3 Live Crew come out to help out, but then this ring's not big enough for all these people. Team Canada then come out. You must have about, what have you got there, 5, 8, 11 people in the ring or something like that?
Yeah, it's too much.
Jarrett rattles Rhino with a guitar and locks Rhino into the casket, so the casket comes into play. You've got Jarrett stood aloft, and then you suddenly hear the... So they were allowed to use that bit of their WWF music.
That was nicely done.
Thanks. It's Team 3D. Apparently, Devon and Bubba are enough to be able to take on all of these people on their own.
Yeah, easy.
Poor Eric Young gets 3D'd and slammed in the casket. It's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I felt for him. Should have been Jarrett, surely, but poor Eric.
And I think that's pretty much the end of the show. I was getting myself a little bit worked up because it looked like we were going to finish with like the Dudleys on top.
Yeah.
And like Rhino's just won 3 matches.
Yeah.
But eventually I think Rhino ends up standing on top of the casket with the title.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Enjoyable.
I thought if you've lost Nash, if you've legit lost Nash, you've had this plan. I thought it was quite a nice pivot. Because I like Rhino. And in a company like this, I could see him being the champion in these stages. I
think Jarrett maybe wins the belt back like the following Impact.
Quick.
Yep.
Yeah. I wouldn't have expected him to be champ for long, but I was happy. I thought that was quite a good ending to the show. The crowd wanted Joe. Like, the crowd would have gone insane if that had been Samoa Joe that was in that spot. But it was maybe a bit too early for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you mentioned the sort of ECW influence, and you've got at the end of this 3 pretty big players in ECW being there with the world title and a dominant showing by a returning tag team. Yeah, I thought it was never going to be, and it shouldn't be, a classic match for the title match. The guy who is going into it has been in 2 matches already, so I thought it did a job.
It did. It was good. You expected shenanigans. I think we've spoken about Jarrett before, and that he's neither of our favourite sort of wrestler in the ring or anything like that, but you expected the shenanigans and the guitar shots. And do you know what stood out to me, actually? Tito Ortiz is a light heavyweight in the UFC at this point, and I think Jarrett was bigger than him.
Really?
And I don't consider. I would never consider Jarrett to be like a big.
Nah, never really thought of him that way. But yeah, that's interesting. Like, I don't mind him here in the role he's in. You know, I quite like him as leading a faction, and the group he's got around him, I think, work. Yeah, I didn't. There was a lot of WCW Havocs that were a lot worse than this.
Definitely, absolutely. Like shave off the 6-man tag.
Yeah,
Maybe a couple other matches. Maybe the X Division, the Ultimate X Division match, or something like that. It's a really good pay-per-view.
Yeah. Yeah, enjoyed it. I'm feeling fairly optimistic right now.
Same, actually, same. But you know, why do we do this?
I mean, we are gonna just jump a year into the future, so things are gonna have changed.
By next time, we'll have Christian. Christian debuts the next pay-per-view, I think. I think. Or he certainly he's in the company, and I don't know if we've got Angle or not, or maybe Angle. Maybe I think Angle debuts round about the next pay-per-view.
Okay.
So hopefully we have him. That would be good. If not, then we might get him on the pay-per-view at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, good start. Good start.
Yeah.
We're not going to look at the card, are we?
Nah, I really enjoyed going in cold to this one, and just seeing what happened at that. We'll keep that going for a wee bit, I think.
Okay. I'm just looking at 2006 horror films. I think we're probably going to have to come back to that.
Okay.
Could be All the Boys Love Mandy Lane.
Oh, classic.
Or the Hills Have Eyes remake.
Oh, wow.
Or Her. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, a good first step on the journey, I think.
Yeah.
It's fair to say. And we'll look forward to it. We'll look forward to what the future is to bring. I'm very excited about this whole. It's funny that they've just brought back the whole TNA stuff. It's all. I think Chris Sabin might still be the X Division champion.
Really?
Not that I think he's held it for 20 years or anything, but. Oh no, he wasn't a champion here. He wasn't a champion. Maybe.
Not yet. No, I think they mentioned he had been though.
I think he maybe is.
Yeah, nice.
Right, well, we shall speak in 2 weeks. Take it easy and keep on making an impact. No, we need to work on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
It'll get better.
Bye-bye.